Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And as you can see, we're back here at Undercaste Studios. Always excited to be here. Thank you guys for having us. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary, fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records, supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank y'all so much for watching again. Shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
What's up, everybody? My name's Coaster.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Absolutely. So I'm Coaster. I'm a hip hop artist and I do motivational speaking. Mm-hmm. I'm also somewhat of a sobriety influencer, and I'm from Selah, Washington, which is, you probably don't know where that's at.
Yeah,
it's, Central Washington.
Gotcha. Yeah, a little ways out. You drove about as far to get here as we drove to get here, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and let's start right at the beginning. What got you started into music initially?
I started music when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and it all started with just writing. And that's something that I, kind of fell in love with. Mm-hmm. And it really started out with making parodies on the bus. At that point in time, Weird Al was super huge. I have two older sisters, a bunch of older cousins. So it was something really big, and it was something fun for me. And then that kind of morphed into more of, using it to write my feelings, when I'm, started going through, my early teen years.
Yeah.
Gave me something to vent about.
I gotcha. And growing up, was anybody else in your household musical at all?
No, not really. I have two older sisters, and, my parents weren't necessarily into music or anything. It was just, I don't know. I honestly don't know where it came from, or just my infatuation with hip hop in general, but it was something that just kind of stuck to me.
Yeah, so you're the first generation of it.
Yes.
Okay, I dig that. What about, I'm always curious, expanding outside of the immediate household, was any of your aunt or uncles or grandparents growing up?
No, not really.
You're really the first one in it.
Yeah, and I feel like I had a distant cousin who, was into hip hop and stuff. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it was just kind of, my own passion, my own thing. And it's just something I never really could let go.
Gotcha. Now, did you grow up in Central Washington?
Yep, grew up there. I've grown up in Selah my whole life.
Gotcha.
All hometown.
Okay. Now, is hip hop a prominent genre in that area?
No.
Okay.
No, we're from a small conservative town, and which most of Eastern Washington is more, conservative and everything. So I feel like even that in itself has been somewhat of a struggle to be a hip hop artist, and even facing rejection early on just because you make rap music. And so that's been, it's been a journey.
I gotcha. And then that's going to make these next couple questions really interesting. So this first one is one we check in with everybody on and ask it early, ask it often. And it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. Because I feel like I didn't buy a lot, because music wasn't necessarily something in our household. So I wasn't in that environment where I had parents or grandparents that bought a ton of vinyls, or, I don't feel like my older sisters really dove into buying a lot of CDs or whatever. But at the same time, their music taste was definitely way different than mine.
Understandably.
So I don't know, but I was definitely into, at that point in time, at the beginning, Nelly was really big, Country Grammar came out. I don't know what else was going on at the time. DJ Unk and stuff like that. That whole early 2010s era was big, was a big influence on, my writing.
No, I dig that. And then I guess, excuse me, what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like specifically one you wanted to go to?
To be completely honest with you, I didn't go to a lot of concerts. I do remember my first concert, I believe, was at the Yakima Sun Dome, and we saw, and who did we see? It was Toby Keith.
Oh, okay.
Keith was probably like my first concert, and I grew up, in the country.
Yeah.
I have that whole country background. I rode horses when I was younger, like competition.
Oh, dang.
So I've, won a couple buckles in, back in the day. So like I grew up in that also country environment, which I do get some influence from, older country and, stuff like that. But as far as like my first concert or whatever, like I feel like I didn't really get to start seeing people that I liked until I started like touring and like doing shows myself.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's kind of weird,
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of just, you were able to catch it because you were kind of in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I dig that. Well, hey, that's one way to do it for sure. Yeah. And then before we officially get into you and more in the now, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
Man, I think when I was younger, when I was like 14, I feel like my cousin, big shout out to Saint Nick. I feel like he called me one day and, I was living at home. My parents were split up. I was the last sibling in the house. It was rough, it was super rough time for me. And I remember him calling me and being like, look, you're messing up in school. Like, you're getting into it with your family, like take this music thing serious and let's see what happens, and it's funny because later on in my teen years, leading up to even like my 21st birthday and everything, like I lived with my cousin and him and his friend like kind of helped manage me financially to get some of my first music, like official music jump started. So that I took that serious. When somebody was like, you have potential, do something with it. I started writing, that's where I started taking it serious. And I knew from then that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Man, that's really powerful. Well,
yeah.
Shout out to them. And that's a huge one. And thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Now let's go ahead and let's get on into more of you in the present day. We are going to get a super easy one out of the way. How'd you pick the name?
Okay. My grandma gave me the name. So I've had the name Coaster since before I was one. It's super weird, but we have like my grandma filmed everything. So we have literally like my whole childhood, on tape, even since before I was born. I had my sister's first years. And we looked back and, they called me Coaster since early on.
Interesting. Do you know what made her call you that?
Because it has to do with my real name. I don't.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't give my real name out, but, cause my dad called me Coast instead of my real name.
Okay.
And so my grandma called me Coaster, and it's just kind of, and of course, when I was younger, I wanted to be cool and have a cool rap name and, tried a couple different things. And obviously it was more natural to just be Coaster, and
because that's what you respond to anyways.
Yeah. So it's just been me,
I'm curious then, what were some of the other ones that didn't work?
I can't even remember.
Okay.
It was, I feel like even one of them, we did like a rapper named like Generator, because that's when the internet started popping off.
Yep.
And so like, I don't remember what it was. It was super corny though.
If you remember, message me afterwards and I'll put it on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
I always love hearing when people are like, that definitely wasn't the first one.
Yeah.
I always want to know what one of my early music names was Cornelius Clutch.
Hey, and that's dope.
You're right. But nobody can spell Cornelius.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. It turned out to be a little bit difficult. So figured out the hard way that cool alliteration doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Coaster, on the other hand, is a rad name. It's easy to spell. It's easy to remember.
Yeah.
It looks good as a font, it's like as a text.
Yeah.
And so it kind of checks all the boxes.
Thank you.
And if it's something you respond to easily, you've got it all dialed.
Definitely.
But now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process a little bit.
Okay.
And we're going to break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning.
All right.
So when you get inspired, you're ready to make music.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you do to get a track started?
I got to listen to beats, but first off, I guess I check where my emotions are. Because when I first started out, a lot of it was deeper, darker music. Like I like to write like dark stuff and like just some super heavy stuff. So I'd have to find beats, but now I want to try to find happier stuff. So I have to check where I'm feeling at in life and what I want to bring out of a song. And so that goes into like, okay, well, I'm going to find some happy piano / something beats, or I want to make something darker because I'm feeling some type of way.
Yeah.
So my feelings go into what beats I'm looking for. And then I like to write. I like to write by myself. I know a lot of artists like want to like do features and they're like, yeah, let's meet up in the studio and we can, but I just don't work that way.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but I like writing by myself.
Yeah.
Like I won't even show my wife really like what I have until like my verse is done. You know what I mean? Like I want to perfect it. You know, I'm kind of a perfectionist. So I'm so creative and I try to make my words right before I bring it to, to the table.
I gotcha. Now, do you find that when you have other people around, is it like more of a distraction, or are you just sitting in like funny poses on the chair and you don't want people to see it?
I feel like it's kind of a distraction, but it's also, I'm so self-conscious about what I'm writing, if it's going to sound stupid or corny. So I just don't want to say something, and you know what I mean? And so I'm always second guessing myself. So I don't want to show it until like I know I have something good.
Okay, that makes sense. And are you always like saying the stuff out loud to like try and get a good feel for it then?
Yeah. Like if I'm by myself, like I'm pretty much rehearsing it 1,000 times before it's even completely written.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times my stuff is like memorized before I even record it.
Okay.
Which is another thing that I've kind of trained myself to do, because I want to bring as much emotion to what I'm saying in my words, instead of like sounding like I'm reading off a piece of paper or reading off my phone. So I can just rap it how I need to rap it for the feeling of the song.
Yeah, I dig that. And also it's probably better because then you show up ready to go in the studio.
Yeah.
Maximizes on the time.
Yeah. Really bang it out and done with it.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to beat selection, like, are you getting them from people you know? Do you find them on the internet? How do you acquire them?
It's a mix of both. I have some producers that I've kind of met and talked to through like beat sites, you know what I mean? And I find somebody that really has what I like, and then I'll send them an email and kind of make that kind of communication open with them. But there are, especially back in the day, I had people that made beats that like, hey, I was buying beats off people that were making them at home. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, nowadays it's not weird to get them from everywhere.
Yeah. I try to keep my selection open as much as possible.
That's fair. There's too many cool beats out there now too to limit it too much, unless you have like your guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then when it comes to putting the words together, are you pen and paper? Are you putting it in the phone? Are you just writing on napkins? Like, how do you go about putting them down?
I love pen and paper. That's just one thing. And I know it looks like chicken scratch and I know it's all over the place, but when I read it, I know how to read it out of order.
Yeah.
And that's just always been me. And I love writing on paper. But as of lately, I've just been doing it in my phone because it's so much easier. And sometimes like I'll even be listening to the beat on my phone because like I'm traveling or like in a hotel somewhere else. And, but I am so much of just like a pen and paper kind of guy.
You got to get, you should get one of those little notebooks, magnet bit on the back and magnet it to your phone.
Yeah.
You could just turn your phone over and
just start writing.
Yeah. But no, I dig that. And I guess that makes sense. Unfortunately, I'm in the same boat where like, it doesn't look, my handwriting is bad.
Yeah.
Mine bad, but I can't type in the phone as fast as I can. Really put stuff down. And sometimes, like you said, you got to kind of group it into different places. Because if you just add it into the bottom, you're going to read it too linearly.
Absolutely. And it's just, I don't know. I just feel like when you write it down, you can put there's more feeling into it. I don't know why. Like instead of just, reading text off a phone, it's just like there's more. You can just put stuff differently.
Yeah, you can put accents or like draw some things bigger or smaller or like figure out how you want it to be said.
Yeah.
It's like when you're typing, you're like, what character do I want to use?
Same.
Yeah. Or like you have to like put like when I put my notes together, I have to use like certain symbols.
Yeah.
Not because those are the certain ones for it, but because I needed something. So I picked something. I'm like, okay, that I know means this. But if somebody else looked at it, they'd be like, what is this? Why does this look like this?
Yeah.
So I get that. And then once you get a track finished writing, so it doesn't have to be like recorded and released, but you've gotten it all written, you're ready to start memorizing it. How long does it usually take you to feel comfortable enough to perform a track?
It's not always this way, but it's usually after I've recorded it and I've heard the song.
Gotcha.
And I just like, cause I know a million artists are just like me. I listen to that song over and over for a million times after I make it till I'm sick of it, till my wife is sick of it. She's usually sick of it before I am.
Fair.
But there are tracks that I have like yet to record that have been like show tracks that I've gone out and just performed because they were just fun to do. And it's just always, I don't know. It's just, you know, I'll console with my wife or somebody and be like, hey, should I perform this song? You know what I mean? And sometimes I'll just go out and perform it and see what happens.
Okay.
So it's just one of those experimental type, you know, things where you just kind of have to go do it and see what happens and see what you might need to change to it or whatever else, you know.
Gotcha. So are you primarily then not like field testing songs? You're usually putting them down more often than not before you bring them out?
Yeah. I'm very much so, except for this last one. I know I performed in Tri-Cities before I recorded it, and it was it's been a really good song for me. I haven't started like necessarily pushing promo for it yet, but it's a really good song, and I wanted to put it out to see how people felt about it before I recorded it. So sometimes I do stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Well, then let's go ahead and let's talk about your music a little bit.
Yeah.
So I jumped on ye old Spotify and I was checking out, and you got music going all the way back to 2018. And it's all super solid.
Yeah.
Like your flow is super tight. You have really good imagery, really good wordplay. And for the most part, your sound is just chill. All your beats are really dialed in. Your recent stuff is super funky.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of that in general. That's like where I come from background wise. So like your most recent track At the Top, big fan.
Thank you.
Big fan. It's a vibe. It is just the beat, like I said, is really in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And the hook. Now I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, it's catchy. It's genuinely a great hook.
Thank you.
It just pulls you in. It makes you have to listen to everything else, no problem. And it doesn't feel like a grab kind of hook. It just feels like a good hook. Yeah, like it flows in a really interesting way where like it could have been a verse and I would have been fine with it.
Yeah.
But I could have listened to that line over and over and over again. So it worked. It's big fan.
Thank you. And that was the song that I'm talking about. And I'm hoping we didn't release it too early because, you know, going into winter, we really wanted to come and film the music video out here in Seattle, but it's such a summer vibe.
Yeah.
You know, so we're kind of waiting until next year to really start pushing like short form content, get a music video out there. And of course, with having a new baby, we've kind of slowed down a little bit. And it's really cool because I have other CDs. Like I have, I think 3 other CDs. And like I said, it's the whole pen and paper thing. I was so used to doing stuff the old way. And so we just sold CDs when we were on tour, you know, because we've toured a bunch through the country.
Yeah.
And that's what we made money on. You know, we made money on CDs. And so I have like a few CDs that aren't even on Spotify or anything. And what really came through during COVID is, you know, we had to stop touring. I had to cancel one of my biggest tours to date. You know, I was about to do, I think, 32 cities and 32 nights.
Oh, dang.
A headlining tour. And we had to cancel it. Like I had boxes of merch ready to go and everything. So it sucked.
Yeah.
Having to cancel that. But that made us slow down and be like, okay, I probably need to write an album for Spotify. You know, I need to write, and that's what Wish Me Worries is. We got to slow down and really craft a project and, you know, aim it towards being more digital and getting it out there instead of, you know, because we couldn't tour, stuck at home.
Yeah.
And so that was a very good experimental project for me to be like, okay, what can I do while I'm sitting here? And I feel like that album, I almost kind of found my sound. You know, because my older stuff is way more rougher around the edges, hip hop.
Yeah.
And I kind of got into this funky stuff. And if you listen to the first track on Wish Me Worries, like that project was supposed to be a dark project. That was supposed to be me getting back into like my feelings, my old ways of writing, and ended up not being that. I was listening to a ton of Mac Miller. I listened to a ton of just those funky, positive vibes. And Wish Me Worries is the album that came out, and I couldn't be any more proud of it. It honestly makes me, At the Top was a great example of still being able to put out a good song, but it makes me worried about not putting out another good album after that because it was so different because I got to use different techniques. It was the first time where I sat down and was like, no, this track needs trumpet. So I'm going to go like sample trumpet off of something real quick. And I got to be more creative. And I feel like I've got to find myself as more of a creator. And it was wonderful, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful, because I think I wouldn't worry too much about like not being able to put anything past that. I think that just based off of everything I have heard, there's a progression in your ability. Like you have grown as an artist, and you know, when the music reflects that, that usually means that you've grown as the person. And so like, I think that your ability to kind of reflect what's happening around you in a lot of ways will always kind of add to that. And now you have, you know, the addition of a baby in your life. So there's a whole new chapter there. And I think there's going to be a lot to come from, but I think, you know, being able to kind of figure out how to put that together really goes a long way. This is kind of a weird, not so much a like shameless plug, but a duo you should reach out to. I'm leaving it here so you can check it out later.
Absolutely.
They did my most recent showcase. They were the backing performers for a handful of like hip hop artists. Named it's Off Dot Brand. So it's like all one word with a period. Yeah, but Off Brand.
Off Brand.
And they are super funky.
Yeah.
They do like guitar and saxophone.
Yeah, I love that.
They both also rap real well.
Yeah.
Like real well.
Yeah.
And I think that just based off of the stuff that I heard of yours more recently, you and them would work really well
match
together.
really
like,
well.
Yeah, because they do the instrumentations.
Yeah.
Instead of you being like, oh, let me sample this, you could literally be like, hey. And I think more that was what I was
Give
trying to get to.
funky.
Yeah, it's like it like now might be the time where you move in the direction of like finding a couple people who can do that, regardless of them or not. Yeah. Because then now you can just think your thoughts out loud and they can translate
it to, yeah. And I've always kind of needed something like that. And another, you know, tough thing, like I've toured with like a drummer before and stuff. And one of the toughest things is to put a band around me. I feel like, especially being from Eastern Washington, it's just, where I'm from, there's not a lot of opportunity. I mean, you go to Spokane and the case is kind of different. There's a bigger scene out there. You go to Tri-Cities, it's a little bit different. But where I'm at, there's nothing. And, you know, that motivation for people wanting to travel, and I just feel like it hasn't always been there, you know, or riding it out with no money, having to sleep on floors. You know what I mean? Like that.
Oh, don't I know?
There, you know, that and people, and that's one thing that I had to realize because I didn't grow up with like a whole lot of friends, and I didn't grow up with a whole lot of friends really in the music stuff. So, you know, it's really cool to see these other artists that have had their friends around for a long time and have pushed them to where they are. And like, I feel like I've had to find out everything on my own. And one of my biggest realizations is nobody is going to be as devoted for my dream as I am.
No.
And so we've always kind of tried to figure it out, but, getting back on topic, I'm sorry. But big shout out to like even Mojam Mondays.
Oh yeah. Mojam.
You know, at the Nectar in Seattle. I've been there a handful of times and been their featured artist. And I love that. When I got, you know, a live band on my backing tracks and super funky, it's, you know, big shout out to Davey and Mo and all the people there.
Yeah. If I can make one other thoughtful like insight share. Try finding just a bass player.
Yeah.
Because first of all, they exist.
Yeah.
They are weirdly underrated, but
there
are plenty of them. The bass is the one thing that doesn't always sound good in every venue.
Yeah.
So if you can bring somebody who handles that dedicated, then your like stuff backing track wise is always going to sound a lot fuller.
Yeah.
And statistically, the amount of equipment needed for a bass to go to a venue is very minimal.
Yeah.
You need an amp and a bass.
That's it.
And like, you know, because guitar players, they need like their pedals. Drummers have a million things.
Yeah.
And they are a little harder to come by sometimes. And I don't see this a lot, but if people were able to perform more with at least just a bass player, then A, you've got the sound there, you've got the live instrumentation, and B, then you can add anything else in, because a guitar can work with a bass, no problem. Drums can work with a bass, no problem. Keys, yeah. Everything can go from, so they are kind of the conduit for building instrumentation into your live sound setting. And then anybody else can attach them because they can communicate it quickly. They can be like, oh, I'm doing this, and this. And then, you know, a guitar player can come and jam with you wherever you're at. You don't even have to bring one with you everywhere. They can just link up and the bassist can speak to them in guitar play.
player.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's just like a thought I'm trying to plant in everybody's heads.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to steal your episode.
Are you a bassist?
I am a bass player. I am a bass player, but I am busy doing this all the time.
Yeah,
I would love to. But yeah, no, that is just a thought I've had. So I'm trying to tell everybody, and hopefully I'm going to see it happen one day, and it'll be real cool.
For sure, because I mean, it just brings hip hop to life.
Yeah.
Real hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not talking about the club banger, you know, doing drugs music. I'm talking like real hip hop. It really brings it to life, and it's beautiful. It makes it a song just transform.
Yeah, very much so.
And so I love playing with live instruments.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm optimistic that'll happen for you.
So
in the near future.
It's been a goal.
Yeah.
You know, we're building up to it, but I'm also that person that wants to get everybody paid, and, you know, everybody's taken care of, you know, so
yeah,
we're building up to that.
Oh yeah. Now, before we move into more of the next bits, I am curious to know, out of all the music you have, what are some of your favorite tracks to perform?
Favorite tracks to perform? Man. I'm trying to think. Everybody loves Vibe With Me. That was like the biggest song that came off of Wish Me Worries, in which I think that was the very first song we put together, because I started working with a new sound engineer out of Atlanta. Big shout out to Dakota G. Pretty sure he has a Grammy for working with Childish Gambino.
Okay.
I don't know how we got connected, but we got connected, and that was our first song where it's like, okay, let's, you know, try each other out, see how this works. And the very first song we did together was Vibe With Me. You know, I was just like, okay, we got to do an album. You know what I mean? Like this is it. Like, this is the most professional I've sounded yet. So let's make an album. And so that Wish Me Worries track is just, I don't know, or not Wish Me Worries, that Vibe With Me song is just kind of special, but that's kind of something everybody kind of gravitated towards.
Gotcha.
So that mixed with, you know, going back to my hip hop stuff, you know, like my remixes that I do, because I'll, you know, it's a game changer when you're performing out of state and, you know, people don't know who you are in the room. You drop a remix on a beat that, you know, people know. It makes them listen. You know, it makes them kind of listen right away. And yeah,
it's like a cover song almost.
Yeah. So it's, you know, to put your own spin on it and to just, you know, just to write something hard on it and have people, you know, be like, okay, you know, this kid can rap on this beat. Like, we'll listen. And that's where, you know, because I always try to structure my performances like that too, where I catch their attention with something, you know, they're familiar with, or something super hard. And then I can go into the more vibey stuff where people are already listening and being like, okay, this is chill, you know?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So it's still kind of like my harder bars that get people's attention. That's kind of my more like favorite performing stuff.
Yeah, no, I dig that. And now, before we actually get into, because I have a handful of things I want to talk about as far as like stuff you've done.
Absolutely.
But I want to ask you about one particular track.
Okay. Because
when I was going through all the stuff on Spotify, there was one in particular that jumped out to me, a little bit of an oddity.
Okay.
And I just need to know the backstory.
Okay.
Can you tell me about your 2020 single, Santa Claus?
Yes. And I actually got to perform that at the Emerald City Gala, I think a couple years back. Big shout out to Marshall Law Band and Marshall. It was, I mean, that was during COVID, and we put a music video together. If you haven't seen the music video, go look at it on YouTube. You know, Coaster, Santa Claus. Me and my wife did it. We storyboarded it. Not only that, but we put it all together ourselves. And there's like, I don't want to ruin it for you guys, but the living room scene where I'm dressed up as Santa Claus and we have a living room scene, we built that whole thing in my sister's shop.
Oh, okay.
It's not even a living room. Yeah. Like, we built all of that whole set. You know, it was COVID. We had a lot of time on our hands. And so we like built all of our own sets, and it was really fun. It was one of those things that I love hip hop. I love what I do, but I never want people to take me too serious. You know what I mean? I always love the humor aspect in my stuff. And again, big shout out to my wife. She's been my videographer and photographer for like at least 8 years now. And so a lot of my music videos, we do everything in house. Okay. I think that also comes from being broke and not wanting to pay people to do it. You kind of learn how to do stuff yourself.
Oh,
and
don't I know?
Yeah. So it's a mixture of that, and then just also just that creative outlet. We're both creatives. It doesn't just stop at writing. It stops at, you know, just creating stuff. Yeah. And so I love our music videos we put together. Oh, yeah. I guess going back to it, I don't know. I wanted to make a Christmas song just for the heck of it. And if you guys want, go stream it on Spotify or wherever you listen to music. It's funny, and if I do say so myself, I think it's a banging.
I was gonna say it's definitely a cool one. It's also one of your like tougher tracks that's available. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting twist.
Yeah.
I am curious. I don't know if you're familiar with this movie that's coming out or may have already come out. It's definitely come out by the time this is, but there's like a Christmas movie that's happening right now called Red One.
Yeah. I can't wait to see it.
I was like, this song should have been in that.
Yeah.
It would have been a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, and now I want to ask, because, you said your wife does your camera work.
Yeah.
Did she do that before? Did she learn that as part of this? Like, where did that come into play?
Well, when we first met, she was going to, college for photography and everything.
Okay, so it was already her.
So yeah. So she has an eye for it. She, but it was me. And when we first got together, we ended up going to Hawaii because I got booked for a show down there.
Okay.
I had a show and a radio interview down in Honolulu. And we're like, well, we're going, we should just film a music video.
Yeah.
And so if you guys want to check out Probably on His Way, that video on YouTube was our first music video that we put together. And we literally went down there with no ideas, no nothing. We went down there with a camera and just to see what we could do. And I feel like from there, we just have kind of built. And I feel like everything like that is just, you just learn from experience. You learn what to do, what not to do. But we get to learn along the way, and we get to do cool stuff. And that was another song that was kind of groundbreaking for me, especially being down in Hawaii for the first time.
Yeah. And it definitely puts in-house into a new perspective.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like, I'm going to dig into this just a little bit further. When it comes to like the editing side of things, is it one of those things where it's like, she's like, all right, let me get my hands on it. You go do your thing. Come back when I'm done. Kind of like how you do it, or like, do you two sit together and like go through the shots? Like, how do you go about putting the video together from there?
It's kind of like my writing. I literally do all the editing on my video. So my wife films everything, but she knows to just give it over to me.
Gotcha.
And
okay,
because I'm a perfectionist, and so that music video for Probably on His Way, I edited the whole thing on the flight back home.
Okay,
so on the airplane flight back home, I edited the whole music video and is good to go. So that's just, I don't know. I'm just very hands-on when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Hey, no, I dig that. And trust me, again, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. All right, now let's go ahead and let's just talk about some of your stuff, some of your stats. Because, you sent me over your EPK and I checked it out, and it is lengthy.
Yeah.
A lot going on. And I mean, it's all cool stuff. Like, you've opened up for some amazing people. You've toured with some awesome artists. You've made an impact in your community as a motivational speaker. Not to mention, you've just done some cool stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I'm a little curious about, though, and we'll talk about the much bigger things in a moment, but you have not one, not two, but 3 different food items named after you.
Yeah.
I want to know personally how you get a pizza named after you, but I'm kind of curious just how those all came to be.
It's just one of those things to just dive into other stuff, and not only, one of my goals as a hip hop artist, even from the beginning, I always knew it was bigger than me, and I want to give back to my community regardless if they wanted it or not. Like I said, I come from a small conservative town. But no matter what, I wanted to give back. And I feel like partnering with like local businesses was a good way, for them to drum up business where.
Oh, don't I know?
Right. Shout out to the sponsor.
Yes.
Where I wasn't really taking anything away from it, besides putting my name on something.
Yeah.
So big shout out to Zach Zaw's Pizza and Glebe. You can get the coaster there. River Canyon Espresso. I have an energy drink named after me, and Shave Ice, Hang Loose Shave Ice. They have a shave ice named after me. But it's just all kind of in good fun, and it's been a long journey to get to where I'm at. So to kind of have that positive reinforcement from my community, for them to even want to name anything after me, is very huge for me. So it's humbling, and I'm absolutely honored that local businesses want to work with me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Like I said, that was one for me that I was like, this is a really fun piece to know about. So I appreciate that.
And hopefully it doesn't stop there. Hopefully I want a burger named after me next.
Yeah, definitely. I would, man, I want a burger named after me too. That would be cool. All right. But now getting back to some of the more substantial things, I guess, I don't know. I feel like that's pretty big too.
Yeah.
So getting into more of your stuff, you have opened for so many people. You've been a part of so many shows. You've played with so many, like I couldn't even type down the list just because it would have been too big and there would have been too many names I would have wanted to say.
Yeah.
What are some of the more memorable moments from those experiences? And after you share yours, if you could tell me, I would love to know one personally. But you had T-Pain on the list.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite artists of all time. I would love to hear that story as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, one of my, most memorable people that I've toured with, big shout out to Afro Man.
Yeah.
We've done some regional tours together, and it's love every time we see each other. You know what I mean? He'll spot me out of a crowd, and, he calls me West Coaster.
Okay.
He's a great guy, and it's kind of hard to come by, especially in the hip hop industry. I feel like to meet people that are very, go out of their way, especially when I have my wife so involved. And so it's like, it's kind of a family thing for me, especially now.
Yeah.
But for, people to go out of their way, big shout out to Stevie Stone. He's another artist that, would spot me out of a crowd and, to say hi to me. So those are two, great people that I've got to tour with. Some memorable stuff. If there's a story of, I almost got booed off stage. I did a show with MGK because my stuff is more, especially back then, more like hip hop ish, rough around the edges, underground ish.
Yeah.
Went out to Spokane, Knitting Factory. When open for MGK, I had my DJ with me. Absolutely killed it. We absolutely killed it. We're on our way back home from Spokane. We get halfway home, and I get a message from the promoter that's like, "Hey, heard you killed it last night. Would you come back and open for YG tonight?" And I was younger. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, yeah, let's flip this car around. Like, we don't have a hotel. Like, we'll drive through the night back home, but like, let's go get it.
Yeah.
So literally, this is where I learned a lot. This is where I learned a lot as a hip hop artist, younger artist, kind of take note. Went back, exact same venue, same DJ, same set list. I swear I almost got booed off stage opening for YG because I didn't know, as a hip hop artist, you have to know your demographic. And that's that was such an eye-opening moment for me where I was just like, we're in the same place.
Yeah.
One night apart. And it was so humbling. And I took thankfully I took all positive away from it. I didn't actually get booed off stage, but like the crowd was pretty restless, and the fact that they wanted to hear YG, they didn't want to hear me.
Yeah.
And that's where, and it was humbling, but it's such a learning moment for me. And I'm glad like I took that away from it. But yeah, getting back on topic.
Yeah, no, I mean that is a great story. Yeah. Because even though I didn't ask for your most favorite moments or like the most exciting. I asked for your memorable ones, and that sounds like a pretty impactful.
That was very memorable.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I mean, please feel free to share some other ones. I don't want to stub you that.
And like I mentioned before, one of the first CDs I had, I remember DJ Unk beating down the block. You know what I mean? That was, the tall tees and big chains. And like, that was that era of music that I was so kind of obsessed with, and then to get to tour with him, like we got to do 3 tour stops with him. And was it his birthday? Or I think it might have been my drummer's birthday. My drummer got to drum for him for, sorry, I'm trying to think of like his big song that was.
Okay, I'm the worst with names, so huge, yeah.
Huge. Man, but my drummer got to drum for him and I got to be like his hype man, like on stage. I want to say were we in Tacoma? I think we're in Tacoma. But it was just really cool. It was one of those eye-opening moments for me where, I don't drink, and I don't think I drank at the time either, but like he grabbed me to sneak away to the bar across the street to get away from the venue.
Yeah.
Before the show even started, to go like have a drink next door. And it was one of those things where it's just like, I grew up listening to people like this. And it's absolutely crazy to me that I can build a relationship with people that I grew up listening to, and they're just normal people.
Yep.
And it kind of blew my mind,
Oh no, I mean, having done this for a little while now, I've gotten to share the room with people of many different levels, and some that are like weirdly bigger than I should have even gotten the room with.
Yeah.
And it is cool how when you like get to sit down and like have a conversation with them, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you got little quirks like I do.
Yeah.
You find some things interesting. You find some things not. Like there is this weird like disillusion once you get to spend time with people and realize that they are just regular people. They just had circumstances that led them to be irregular by society. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why like Afro Man always told me, he's just like, man, he's like, don't ever stop writing. He's like, the one song that I didn't think would do anything for me was a song that got me famous.
That's always how it goes.
Like you are one song away from being famous, and don't ever forget that. And that's one thing, Afro Man, always told me. And to like meet legends doing this too, like big shout out to Nasty Ness. He's been a mentor for me for a long time. Big shout out, prayers and thoughts go to him. I know he's on a road to recovery right now. Some health issues, not to throw his stuff out there, but thoughts and prayers to him. But he's helped me out along the way, and he had me come out to Seattle one time to meet Curtis Blow, and had me like stage side, and then had me come like meet him, and to just meet legends like that. And I mean, Nasty Ness himself is a legend, especially out here in the Seattle community. So it's it's rad. It's rad just what music has done for me, and just my life in general. Yeah,
very much so. All right, now I do want to circle back. I would still love to know the T-Pain story.
T-Pain. Yeah. See, I wish I would have met T-Pain, but it was one of those things where
it's just like, here's the spot
up right before he performs. And it was in Yakima.
Okay.
One of my favorite, venues back home at the Seasons. And I didn't get to meet him. I did, but it was kind of earlier in my career. And I feel like it was one of my first like kind of bigger shows like that where, performing for a full house, and, wish I would have met him because he seems like such a cool dude. I've seen a lot of his just interviews and like podcast kind of stuff, and he's such a normal dude.
How long ago was that?
Man, I want to say like 2016 or something. Like
that was right before he put out Oblivion. So he was still kind of in a weird, like, people knew of him, but he hadn't like done major things in quite some time. So he may have even been in an odd space at that time. So but again, neither here nor there. It's still rad you got to do it. Now, before I move into the final question, like you've talked about it many times on here now. You've been, sober for almost 10 years. You've spoken to people many times through your journey through recovery. What are some of the positive moments you've experienced along the way through that?
Man, first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Joyous. They're a non-alcoholic, alcohol removed wine company from out here in Seattle, 100% sober owned, 100% woman owned. And one of the craziest things about just being a sober artist is being able to connect and build with companies like that. And I never thought in my wildest dreams, like, companies would sponsor me, and so everything's kind of come hand in hand. And, they've helped with my, I had a show out in LA. They helped with my travel down there. More recently, my baby's first flight, we, went out to Texas, had a festival down in Corpus Christi that they helped out with. It's just, I guess it's just meeting people, because everybody's got a story. And no matter what, alcohol affects, people in some way or another, whether you're sober or not, or whether, your parent is sober or not, and not everybody's an alcoholic, and that's where it's kind of difficult for me because, I don't do the 12-step program. I dove headfirst into music. I almost killed myself in a drinking and driving accident back home. And that's where I really had to find out what I wanted to do in life. And this was, not too long, after I turned 21. And I have a Chevy pickup truck that I lived in. I lived in my truck a couple different times, and it was, came from the family. So it meant a lot to me, and it's in a couple music videos, so it lives on, but I totaled it, an accident I probably shouldn't have walked away from. And yeah, kind of forgot where I was going with this. And so it jarred me up a bit, went back to jail a few more times for, drinking while on probation or whatever. And I really had to, figure out what I want to do. Like, was it music or or am I going to continue partying off some success that, now that people in my hometown know who I am, it was almost kind of an ego thing and celebrating. We don't even know what we're celebrating anymore. But yeah, I dove into music head first. And so that's where I kind of like, don't always feel the greatest about going and like being a official, like sober motivational speaker, and I tell schools and stuff, like, I'm just a normal person.
Yeah.
Like if kids see me as a positive role model, then, that's great. But like, I just have a story, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to do this because I want everybody to be like me. Everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
Everybody handles alcohol different. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's, that in a way that image I think is important. It is important because there are a lot of people, like growing up, when people would come to school, they would talk about how like they were in the worst possible conditions ever. They had hit their genuinest rock bottom 1,000 times and this and that.
Yeah.
And those stories are important as well, because when you get to that, you need to acknowledge it. But there is still a medium. There is still an intermediate space where, like, yes, maybe you are not doing 1,000 of the worst things.
Yeah.
But you're still doing enough of them that, like, you need to acknowledge it to make a decision to move in a direction, and for you to find a positive outlet through it for you. And, and I mean, you are doing things in music. You are achieved, you are accomplished, you are capable. And so you really are a positive example, because
thank you.
I think your existence is more in the realm of relatability to a larger window of people. And especially for younger people who maybe, have only been doing it for a little while, and they're like, well, I don't see any problems yet.
Yeah.
For you to be like, look, this is a small step away from where you are. Like, yes, you may not be in the worst conditions ever in 5 years, but
it can lead to that.
2 years from now, you could be here and this is still not good.
Yeah.
And like, look,
you could be dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, or you could take that energy and direct it somewhere while you have it.
Yeah.
To be young and to be able to actually like use your creative mind and like put it towards something that, your brain is malleable enough to comprehend.
Absolutely.
That is the best time to do it. So I think it's really cool that you're able to share that image with people, because I feel it is in a way almost more relatable to a lot more people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's real. Cause I feel like, hip hop got to a point where like, it's just all a lot of fictitious or it's just non-relatable.
Yeah.
Because it's rich people talking about having money and, and people still vibe with that. Like, you can't knock it. But I feel like it's been more rewarding when I started writing about my real life problems, because not everybody wants to talk about their problems.
Yeah.
And, for everybody out there listening who's going through stuff, I've had a lot of people commit suicide around me, a lot of death around me. And one thing, the most important thing is being self-aware. Yeah. Self-aware that you need to put your energy somewhere else. But just know that, you can always get through it. And one of the biggest topics I talk about, like at schools and stuff, is your environment. Especially me coming from a small town. I go to a lot of smaller communities, and a lot of times there's nothing to do for teenagers but to drink and smoke and, do whatever.
Yeah.
And
anything to pass the time.
Yeah. And no matter what. And I feel like, even as far as like people getting into drugs, like really bad, it's because their environment normalizes what they're doing. And that's not always normal to the rest of the world. You know what I mean? So I try to tell kids that, like, in your environment, like you have to change your environment sometimes. Sometimes you have to cut off a circle of friends, as much as that sucks. And the hardest part in life is outgrowing situations. It doesn't mean that you don't love them anymore. But you have to be self-aware to know that, you can break through that glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Just because, it can even come down to, you might be the first person to graduate high school in your family. And, and just because all these other people around you haven't, or say that you couldn't, doesn't mean that you can't. Just like I'm from a small town of Seattle, Washington, that nobody's ever heard about. And I try to make it apparent that just because nobody came out of there and did it didn't mean that I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so I try to make that as relatable as possible, that I'm just like all of them. I sat in the same high school. Go out and do something with your life and use this time. Even if you think school sucks, use this time right now to build a platform for yourself, because you guys have a million tools at your hands that I didn't have back in high school.
Very much so. Yeah.
Do it. People are making albums off their iPhones. Like, find your passion.
Yeah.
Your environment. Don't let your environment shape you,
Especially now, I think the ability to do anything is so much more accessible.
Yeah.
That like it may not always end up being like a lucrative path. Like if you're trying to make $1 billion, it won't always, I'm not going to be the next Joe Rogan and I do this way as much as he does.
Yeah.
But like, I think especially now more than ever, the need to be creative, the need to be constructive, I think more than anything is so important to just people in general. Absolutely. And to find something that lets you do that there's really nothing else like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, before we move into this next portion, this next question I have somehow is going to be the densest question I have in the interview. But we've talked a lot about, your experiences, your actions, your reactions, your time in music. But when it's just you and music, one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
Man, I guess it kind of depends what I'm doing. There's an interview. I don't know. It was an interview of Logic, and Logic like just breaks down and like starts crying mid-interview because he's never like slowed down enough to take in what's really around him. And I feel like I relate to that so much. And I feel like if I slow down, like of course I'm enjoying the journey right now, but at the same time, I don't want to necessarily reflect on everything I've done.
Yeah.
So, depending on what I'm doing with music, it's different. Sometimes I'll sit by myself and I'll listen to a lot of my old stuff. And that stuff hits my heartstrings because it's like, I can feel the emotions that I felt back when I wrote it.
Yeah.
And it starts making me think about how far I've really come, the places that I've been, the people around me that aren't around me anymore, whether that's at a choice or at a death. And it just makes you feel alive. You know what I mean? Whether for joy or whether for pain, like, I'm still alive and I'm still here. So it gives back to me, sometimes it gives that energy back that I put into it. And sometimes you don't always feel that. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes you're tired of doing stuff. Sometimes you get tired of speaking to kids, because kids.
No, that one I don't know, but
it can be kids.
Yep.
Sometimes you get tired of touring and performing and not making a lot of money or whatever. And it kind of overshadows why you started doing music in the first place. And then sometimes I get those one-on-one moments with music where it's just like, man, I've really come a long way.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's when I'm by myself because like sometimes I'm, with my wife and I'll get caught off guard by shows. Like, I did a show out in Tacoma at the Spanish Ballroom. I opened for Andre Nicotina not too long ago.
Wow.
It was on a Tuesday night and, wasn't expecting a whole lot. Of course, I was out there like with my merch table and everything and like not a lot of people. And then we're backstage, doing whatever, getting ready. And then I go out there and it's just a full house. And sometimes that catches you off guard and you're just like, and when the energy is there, it especially catches you off guard and it's like, okay, buckle up. You have to do what you need to do because I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
So it's, people don't understand how introverted I am because they see me performing at shows or whatever. And I have to be that person because I have to hit that switch and be like, okay, I got to go out and rap now.
Yeah.
This is part of the gig. Like go, and so sometimes there's stuff like that where I get to share moments with my wife and just look at her and, there's sometimes like she'll tear up, I that also happened a week before our wedding. I opened for Flo Rida. There's a big story behind it. I won a competition back home and that allowed them to work with his management and made sure that I was the only opener for him out in Yakima at the fair.
Oh, cool.
And it was another one of those, sun was going down, it was outdoor concert, not a lot of people and everything. And, when I hit the stage, like it was one of those like freezing in time moments because it was just a sea of people. And I have like my promo videos like online and stuff. And you can see, I think it's on my Instagram too. It's one of my first videos pinned on my Instagram. And it was just like looking at her and being like, what happened? Like, where did these people come from? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's, I don't know. Sorry to get off topic, but
you're all good, man.
Sometimes music in itself just catches you off guard because it's taken me places that I haven't thought imaginable.
Yeah.
And it keeps doing it, over and over. And Sometimes I don't sit down and actually think about it, and then I'll sit back and think about it, and it's kind of emotional, you know?
No, I fully understand. And I think that answer actually answers the question a lot more than it may seem on the outside, because music is a lot.
Yeah.
There's so many things that music can be.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of what it does for any one person, the ability to view it, to witness it, to capture it, and to be able to like experience it in your own way.
Yeah.
It has to affect everybody differently.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, you're at a place now. You have performed with so many people. You have put out so much music. You have made an impact on your community, both with your music and because of and next to your music.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, that answer really summarizes it well, because you are so in it all of the time. Like, it must be hard to see outside of it.
Yeah.
Because you really, I think you strike me as the kind of person who has genuinely given the largest part of your life to it in exchange for hoping that you can provide something for it.
Yeah. And it sucks, you know, at the same time, like the life of an artist sucks. You know, I feel like, you know, I'm still trying to, you know, build relationships with my nephews. You know, I got 3 nephews, but like just going out and touring and stuff, like just wasted a lot of moments with my family. You know, I just sacrificed a lot, you know, from my own health to just memories that I'll, you know, never get back.
Yeah.
And, you know, same thing with like, you know, this mural. Like I was part of a mural in my hometown, and like I feel like I haven't genuinely soaked that in yet. You know, it's been planned for like months and months and months, and then like I finally get to see it, you know, like it's all done and stuff. You know, me painted 12 feet tall in my hometown, that, you know, coming from a place that didn't necessarily always accept me, you know, for being, you know, a rapper, or I'm corny because I'm not gangster. You know what I mean? The stereotypes that come behind, you know, being a rapper, you know, for, you know, good, bad, and ugly. And I feel like I still haven't soaked that in yet. You know, got to go see it, take pictures with it, and it just still hasn't hit me yet, you know?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm curious then, what was the first thought you had when you saw it?
I don't know. Like, I literally don't know. It's just kind of surreal. Like I drive by it every day, you know? So it's like, it just does not, I don't know. I honestly I haven't soaked it in yet. Like I haven't processed it. And it was new to everybody else. Of course, like, you know, my inbox got flooded by people like, oh my gosh, congratulations. Cause I had people, it was funny because I had people messaging me before it was even finished. But they're like, you could see the star tattoo on my elbow.
So they knew it was you.
People knew it was me, and I didn't release anything, but we did like the photo shoot for it like months and months before they even started painting. So it was almost like an old thought to me.
Yeah.
But it was new to everybody else. And so like,
so yeah, you're like, I guess I'm curious then, what did it feel like when you found out it was going to happen?
I was absolutely honored. There's a big story that goes behind that too. The whole mural stands for inclusiveness in our community and everything. And of course, you know, with today's political climate, it's rough some places. You know what I mean? I could say my hometown is kind of one of them, and not all the time, but there's a lot of, you know, pushback in wanting to keep things the way they are. And this mural comes from an organization that sued this, you know, the city of Sela. And this mural was out of the settlement that they had to do. And so a lot of people feel some type of way about it. And so it's rough to kind of be the face of that in some ways.
Yeah.
But I know it's for the good. I know it's for the good. And it made me feel honored, you know what I mean? For somebody want to do that, you know, because I've always just had such a love-hate relationship with my hometown. And for something to be established like that, I finally felt accepted. You know, I wrote a long post about it, and about how I kind of felt about it. And I just kind of felt more accepted. You know, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like it. But I finally felt like I found my place, because I never stopped being who I was. And I didn't try to fit into an agenda, or I didn't fit into what people wanted to see out of me. Yeah. You know, I could have easily just been a country hip hop artist, and, you know, and people would have probably loved me. And and I, I even sampled some Hank Williams Jr. I've dabbled in some stuff, and because that really is my background. I'm proud to, be from the country, and my dad took me away from, the streets and stuff. And, I was pretty pissed off when I decided to be a rapper. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just like, I took you away from all this, move you to the country, and you're going to be a rapper, and it took him a long time. And he's probably one of my biggest fans now, but it took him a long time to see what I was really doing and what positive influence could come from it, come from my music. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's kind of a dense rabbit hole we ran down for that, but I really appreciate it.
I'm good with rabbit holes. I'll keep talking.
Fair. Well, now let's go ahead and let's move on to the next portion. And this one's all hypothetical questions.
Yeah.
And for these, the questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Love it.
But this first one is pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive.
Only one person.
Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
Man, I mean, I gotta say, with where the climate of hip hop is at right now, I mean, I'd love to work with Kendrick. He's absolutely killing it, and I just feel like everybody's gonna have different opinions about him, or but I feel like he's stayed true to himself. You know what I mean? The whole good kid, Mad City, and staying true to himself. And I don't know. I look up to Kendrick a lot. He's, his new album is definitely banging in the car on the way over here. So Kendrick is definitely one. If I had to pick one person right now, it'd definitely be Kendrick Lamar.
Oh yeah, I dig that. Yeah. How would you want to work with him? Like, would you want to be on your album? Would you want to be on his album? Like, what would you want to do?
I mean, I'd love to be on his album either way, but at the same time, even if we didn't creatively mesh, because that's another thing I've had to learn as a musical artist. Sometimes you don't mesh. You know what I mean? Like, I live a sober life, and Afro Man is a cultural pop icon for smoking weed. And like, as much as, we like each other and we've done a lot of shows together, a song with us probably just wouldn't really mesh.
Yeah.
So even if me and Kendrick didn't mesh, which I think we would, even just touring is huge, and especially the exposure that comes with it. I'd love to tour with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And now subsequently, who is and I always say local artist. I guess for you can expand it a little bit further if there's maybe not somebody in your immediate city.
Yeah.
But who is somebody that's close to you that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Man, try not to throw out a whole lot of names.
I mean, you can go as long as you want.
Man, I've always had, I've always kind of had love for Macklemore. There's just another weird story where he came through town, and I was supposed to open for like an outside event that was supposed to be like a block party before his show, and it ended up getting canceled on me like the week of. Like, I was even like went and did like a radio interview, like he was being brought in or whatever, like through the radio station and everything. And I got cut from that, and still a little bitter about it, but I know how things go.
Yeah.
But he's one person that I've always kind of wanted to work with out here. Sir Mix-a-Lot. If you want to go like newer generation, I would love to work with Travis Thompson. I think we'd mesh very well together. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, those are all solid choices. And everybody, what to do. At them in the comments. Let's see if we can make it happen. For this next one, sky's the limit. Questions are all made up.
Yep.
But if you could perform anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, it was guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show.
I already know.
Okay. What is it?
No, keep going.
Oh, I was going to say, guaranteed the best show, and it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere, and it would work in this case. Where would you pick?
I have no idea why, but one of the biggest venues on my bucket list is Red Rocks. I don't know why.
So Madison Square Garden used to be like my end goal for this show is if I could get that there, then like I've done it.
Yeah.
But Kill Tony beat me to it. So now Red Rocks is my new favorite. It's such a cool venue.
Yeah.
And for the people that have been on the show that have like been there before, it's just such a magical experience from what everybody tells me.
Yeah.
Have you like gone to
venues too?
Have you been to it yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
I don't know why. Like, I'm just like, there's some things like in my like life and journey that I'm just like spiritually attracted to, just like the seasons back home in Yakima. I don't know why, but something about that venue, I've always been, there's something about it.
Yeah.
Like, one day I'm going to sell it out, something, you know what I mean? And on a bigger scale, Red Rocks for me. I don't know why. Never been there. Never seen like a whole lot of footage of it.
Yeah.
But I know it's just a beautiful outdoor venue, and I don't know, something about Red Rocks.
No, that is a super solid choice. I definitely support that. You know, it's funny. I understand what you mean by like having a more like local place that just in your head means so much more. Because by the time this comes out, this will have already happened, so I can share this here. But I'm about to do my first in real time. I'm about to do it. By the time this came out, it will have just passed. But my first showcase at this venue in Vancouver called Brick House.
Nice.
Now, it's statistically, it's one of the cooler venues in downtown because Afro Man has performed there.
Nice.
That is a benchmark for their place. But I've always really liked it. The stage is really cool. The space is really cool. It's like a restaurant, but it's also like a venue and like a 9-table pool hall and like an event space. Like, and there's just, every time I've gone there, it's always been one of those places where I'm like,
you feel different about it.
This makes me feel like something really special can happen here.
Yeah.
And through time and connecting with people, I have now locked it in as hopefully my recurring showcase spot every month.
Heck yeah, man.
But that,
congrats.
Thank you. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. And I've got one last question to go for this hypothetical portion. If you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you want an album from?
Mac Miller.
Okay.
Probably Mac Miller.
Yeah. Hell yeah. No.
Sure.
I always wonder what his music would be like specifically now.
Yeah. Because obviously to the end of his career and then the album that came out after his death, it's very kind of in a darker place. And I would have loved to seen, if he would have pulled through all that, what his music would have been on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Would have been some really good stuff.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
What can we look forward to between, let's see, by the time this comes out, it'll be like very, very, very beginning of January, I believe, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
If it didn't, don't judge me, everybody. But what can we look forward to for the first half of next year? Or possibly the first half of this year, depending.
Man, having a baby, we really just slowed down a lot. But 2025, we definitely want to hit a lot more festivals. We want to really get into it and just start booking like crazy again. Because being, kind of off for 6 months is, killing me right now. I
understand.
Like, as an artist, like it's killing me. But all good stuff behind the scenes. It's amazing being a new father. Just such a different aspect of stuff. And yeah, definitely new writing material. But we definitely want to release new music. I want to start on a new album. I'd love to have a new album out by next year. But a lot more shows, and hopefully we get to travel more places.
Oh yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to all of that. I do this segment on the show called Tuned In, where I sit down with people when they put out an album and break down a grip of the songs and talk about the writing process.
Yeah.
If you want to come back for that,
absolutely,
let me know. I'd love to have you back on for it.
Absolutely.
But for this next one, go and look straight at your camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You can find me. Let's see. So you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook is probably my most trafficked social media site. So look at Coaster Under Pages. I believe my Instagram is Coaster_509. My Snapchat is Coaster509. I really hope it is. But anyways, you'll be able to find me. Just Coaster on all social media platforms. You should be able to look me up. Look me up on Spotify or wherever you listen to music, and please stream my music. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody that takes the time to listen to me and has followed this journey of mine for a long time.
Hell yeah. And then your Instagram will have been on the screen there. Okay. So they'll at least be able to get to you from there and everywhere else. And then for this next one, is there any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else would like to put on while you're on here?
I just want to say a big shout out to my family and my fans that have stuck around throughout this journey. Big shout out to the people that work with me, the people that book me, the people that sponsor me. Shout out to all my sponsors. Shout out to my wife. Shout out to my little baby Opal.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And with that being said, I've got one last question to go.
Okay.
Before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Okay.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Raw Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
Yep.
But in all of music, what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? It's a bit of a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
And I feel like Good Kid, Mad City from Kendrick Lamar. Like, I know that's very popular and out there, but when I heard his album from front to back, it's just kind of a masterpiece.
Mhm.
It's literally almost like a movie.
Yeah.
You know, his whole album is pretty much like a movie. And that's kind of something that I wanted to, you know, create into my own, to where, you know, I had some kind of storyline, or it just all flows together. And it's just, I feel like Good Kid, Mad City was just so cinematic. Even if you don't relate to that lifestyle, it's like watching a movie.
Yeah.
So definitely, yeah.
Hell yeah. No, I mean, yeah, if y'all haven't listened to that or listened to it in a while, that is a great rec.
Yeah.
All right. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Coaster.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap. This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.